All right. Well, I'd like to thank everyone for joining tonight. We've got an hour. It'll probably go by pretty quickly. So definitely want to thank the econ department for hosting this and our panel, who you guys see here, Adam, Alex, and Danny or Danielle. It's weird to see Danny since I know you as Danielle. Um,
It's true.
uh, so we will have a lot to cover in this hour. We'll do some quick intros, and we'll talk about the panel's experience. I'm going to ask them a handful of questions, and then hopefully we can get some guidance from them for the students that are here tonight, and then we can open it up for questions in the last few minutes. So my name is Dan Gildengoran. I am SC04. I graduated in econ and mathematics, and I've been in and around data, primarily at Apple for a little over a dozen years now, almost 13 years. So I'll open it up from here to the panel. I'm gonna use my screen. So Alex, you're up first. If you want to tell us about yourself.
Oh, myself? Okay. I graduated in '07, even though the leaflet says 11. I actually had one lingering credit left for many years that I just didn't get around to. But I graduated in May '07, and the financial crisis happened pretty much within a year after that. So that was a great time to be in finance or economics because it was challenging. And from that, it pushed me into the data field. I don't think I even knew anything about it right after school, but I was pretty savvy with computers, and I started working for older boomer type companies that were extremely antiquated, and I showed them like very basic things that you could do to automate stuff in Excel and other platforms, visualize things. So I was, kind of the person that they knocked on the door if they needed something done as far as coding. And back then there wasn't really Python, there wasn't really some of these cool platforms that you can ask it AI questions and it tells you a story with the data. So you had to really kind of like build those things, and people that have been using Excel forever know that it dies at about 1 million rows of data. So from there you had to like get out your SQL server skills and build data frames that way. So it's been a long journey to get to where we're at today with all this cool technology. I worked on Wall Street for a little bit, and then also in oil and gas, healthcare, and now I basically run a software company.
All right, Adam, you're up next.
Thanks, Dan. Hello, everyone. My name is Adam, and I graduated from USC in 2018. I majored in economics and political science, and I actually got my first job out of school through an economics class I took called Managerial Economics with Professor Dubin. I'm guessing it's still a pretty popular course. Danny, I see you smiling. Maybe you took it also.
Loved that class. Yeah.
It was really cool. I really enjoyed the work that we did in that class. For those that don't know, Dubin is a economic consultant by trade, and he did that for I think over a decade. And that class is it's maybe 8 case studies of client cases that he worked on, and as the semester goes through you get to do all the same work that he did on those cases. And so I found the work really interesting, and a firm, TM Financial Forensics, actually came and recruited out of that class, and that's how I got my first phone interview, passed the phone interview, ended up in the office, and then got an offer, and I worked there for 4 years almost, out of school. And that was a really, really great learning experience. I got introduced on the first case I worked on to working with data in SQL. kind of similar to you, Alex. I think the way that TM Financial worked, we were working oftentimes in Excel. And it just so happened that on this case, we were working with data that was more than 1 million records. So that meant I and a team of consultants had to put our SQL hats on, and we worked in SQL, and I kind of fell in love with working with data and focused on that for 4 years at TMF, and then kind of pivoted career paths. And now, as of like April of this year, I've worked at Edmunds, which is a car buying website based in Santa Monica. And I do data analytics for them. And so what that means is I basically help monitor how their website traffic is doing. I'm helping evaluate A/B tests that we run to try and increase traffic to our site. And then also we sell a suite of technology products to car dealerships to help them earn more leads and ultimately sell more cars. And so I'm helping monitor and think of ideas on how to improve those products. And it's been really great. And I'm excited to share a little bit more about that as the panel starts.
Awesome. Great. And Danny, last but not least.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Danny. I graduated my undergrad at USC in 2021. So I think I'm the most junior of the group a little bit. And in my undergrad, I was an econ major, of course. And that's actually how I got connected with Dan, who has served as a mentor to me for the past couple of years, ever since undergrad. And in that relationship with Dan, as he knows, I applied to USC's progressive degree program, where I then did a 1-year master's program in applied data science through Viterbi directly after undergrad. I had a minor at USC in data analytics, or applied analytics, I think is the actual title. And in my first year after undergrad, I was taking classes at night part-time while working full-time at Oracle in tech sales, which was a great experience for my resume, but not quite the skills that I was really wanting to lean into in my career. So after a year at Oracle and towards the later half of my master's program, I took an internship at TikTok, which really got me started with my actual data science experience. I was a data science intern on a product adjacent team. And I really enjoyed the entertainment aspects of social media and kind of wanted to kind of go more in that direction. So after graduating from my master's, which was in December of this, almost 1 year ago exactly, I now work at formerly HBO, now called Max, which is owned by Warner Brothers in Los Angeles. And it's like entertainment tech. It's very, very awesome. I'm really happy that I've ended up in this space. It's streaming. I'm an analytics engineer as of last week. I started as an analyst and I support the product team specifically. So looking at how users interact with our app, what we can improve, A/B testing, just like Adam was talking about, etc. So econ was my kind of like path to ending up in a full analytics career, and definitely set the foundation because being mathematically savvy. So really excited that everyone here has an interest in pursuing the data route. I think it's a great place to be in a career, and I highly recommend it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, guys. So I would say let's just jump in. These next few questions are going to be geared toward your current experience or your past working experience, just to give the audience a taste of what it's like in data science and the problems that we tackle daily. But I would like to start with how you feel like your SC Econ degree has helped you get to and succeed in your current roles. Adam, you want to jump in first here?
Yeah. So when I think about my undergrad experience and how it's helped me in my career so far, I think like two big things come to mind. One, And this is something that I don't think I fully realized until I had been out of school for a little bit. But I really believe that to write well is to think well. And that's something that throughout, writing lots and lots of essays and papers in political science, and then working on some directed individual research in my econ classes, I think really helped me develop that skill. I think as you write and try to share an analysis you've done, you kind of start to pick out maybe what the things you didn't think about were, and what would make your argument stronger. And so that's one thing I think has been super applicable to what I do now. And then the other thing that Danny alluded to, and this was especially specific to econ, was creating some intuitions about statistics and how to think about correlation and causality, and how to design an experiment, or how to try and do your best to work with the available data that's out there to try and tease out relationships between variables. That's a massive part of what we do at Edmonds. So those are the two things that I would call out.
And Danny, what do you think about how that econ degree has helped you get to Max?
Yeah, he's spot on. And even just kind of adding on to what he's saying about kind of teasing out those relationships, there's a lot of data out there. Most of it is bad. And I think that an econ degree gives you kind of that business aptitude that's very important in analytics, and that will set you apart from maybe other analysts or other engineers at the company, because some just kind of have only a technical background. I think being able to take a step back and recognize like when data is not good from the business perspective is huge and will save you tons of time. And even more so, a lot of what you study in econ is like the cyclicality of the market and a lot of things about how humans make decisions. And that can kind of be tied into like any type of analysis, honestly, that you're probably doing. You're probably trying to make a sale somewhere. So I think just the whole business acumen that the degree teaches is very, very relevant in making you even more efficient and productive at anything in the data field.
Great. Awesome. All right, Alex, since you're the most senior on the panel, I think we're curious to.
Yeah. Like I said, it was a tough time when I graduated, to be honest. I couldn't find a job for like a year, like after the market crash, because I was in investment banking. My internship was at Bear Stearns, which was a defunct company. So I think really what prepared me for that time at SC was everybody I knew was pretty entrepreneurial already. So instead of lay back and be like, where's my job? And kind of like, woe is me, I just started working for anybody. And honestly, at the time, I hit some pretty low hanging fruit in industries that people really didn't want to work for. Oil and gas was kind of like a taboo place, still kind of is. And you'd be surprised. These companies, ExxonMobil, Matagorda, massive oil and gas companies, they're running on software that's from like the 80s and nobody updates it. And there's one guy who's 90 years old that they keep paying that can hold it all together with Scotch tape. And they have this huge, adventure to move themselves into the future, because they're about 15 years behind anything else, Apple or Salesforce, anything like that. They are, I'm not joking, 15 years behind. And so by doing some basic things that you can automate, you add millions and millions of dollars of bottom line to these companies that there's not a lot of young people in these industries. So that's one thing. The other thing is really from that experience, I kind of like saved a lot of my work that I did throughout the years. And now that I'm 40 years old and I've been doing it for a while, you just make sure to archive everything and keep it, because you will use it later. Like there's stuff that I built 10 years ago, 15 years ago that we're putting together now. And just because you do something and it wasn't fun or whatever, just keep like spend some time every year and like catalog all the code you do and all the research you do, and kind of like keep building your portfolio. Don't just stop right when you get a job, because that could be very, very useful later on down the road. And I don't know, you guys probably are getting into it, but there's so many tools out there. They all do the same thing. Tableau is the same as Qlik. SQL is the same as Oracle. Alteryx is the same as EasyMorph. They're all the same. So if you know the principles really, really well, you can go into any industry, in any technology, in any company, and be able to just hit the ground running 90% of the time. So
yeah, fantastic. I totally agree. GitHub is so important, right? Engineering standards, learning to reuse code, making sure it's clean and human readable. Those things matter, right? Because it helps you scale and do more at a faster rate, which is definitely fantastic. So to that end, what are your thoughts on those necessary skills or languages that would be really helpful for the students as they move into careers in data science? Danny, you want to jump on this one first?
Yeah. Analytics, SQL will be your best friend, and visualization tools that go alongside would be like a Tableau or a Looker. I know Oracle has one too. Exactly what Alex was saying. Like, you learn one, you can kind of do all of them. It's just like adjusting a little bit. Depending on the industry that one goes into in analytics, you may have a lot more Excel based work. For me, being in like entertainment tech, all of my work is in SQL. And then when it comes to the data pipelines that we build on our team, as well as like automated reports and like jobs that get run that refresh our data every time someone opens the app, that's going to be a lot more Python heavy. And it's kind of one of those things where there's always going to be something better. I think Python is pretty tried and true. I learned it first in high school. I was fortunate to go to a high school that like offered a computer science class. And I remember at the time it was like relatively new. And like my dad was like, "What's Python? That's not one of the classics. You should be learning C, yada, yada." And I think, again, like once it's kind of the same as with the visualization tools, once you learn one, you can learn another. And I'd recommend Python if you're trying to go into data science. I think that kind of covers it. As far as like the big three would be a data viz tool, SQL, and Python.
Great. Yeah. Alex, what are your thoughts?
So when I was at SC, I never coded a single thing. I did probably some MATLAB for like econometrics. And when I got out, I felt really naked not being able to code at all. Like I felt like I was behind, even though I went to school. And I fell into using a lot of no-code apps. I don't know if you guys have heard of Alteryx, EasyMorph. There's a lot of platforms out there that if you know the fundamentals of data science, you don't need to code at all. It's drag and drop, plug and play. And I'll be honest, a lot of these are a lot faster than sitting there, going on Stack Overflow, checking the code, making sure it works on multiple computers. You can literally whip something up in like 10 minutes that might take 3 weeks. And then you can charge the client for 3 weeks worth of work. So it's just how fast you want to work and how you want to do it. Those are just some fast track ways to do data science. You should know SQL for sure. You need to know SQL very well. You need to know Python, but it's not like you don't need to be an expert to actually have a career in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Adam, what do you think?
I would second what Alex and Danny have shared. I don't think I have much to add as far as like other languages or tools to learn. I think they're spot on with SQL, Python, and just learning the principles of visualizing data. The one little tidbit that I would add is I had this awesome website that I used when I was originally learning SQL that if anyone is interested in, they could literally take an afternoon out of their day and complete a bunch of really awesome sort of puzzles on this website called SQL Zoo. So if you're interested in learning SQL, I think it's an awesome, free, really accessible place to start.
Great. Fantastic. So I think I would generally necessarily agree with you guys across the board. There are ends of the spectrum, right? When you think about more of the data engineering work and something like Airflow for ETLs is certainly important. When you think about productionalizing the models and the tools and products you build, and then, you know, we'll knock Excel plenty, but I'm sure it's open on most of our computers at work every day for the quick and dirty stuff. It is for me, and you eventually get to the point where you start doing things really, really quickly without a mouse in Excel because you just have those things hammered into your brain. And then, as everyone said, the visualization piece I think is also really important in that final mile of explaining and telling the story of what you did. To that end, a lot of this feels very data heavy, intensive. Love to know your guys' thoughts on the exciting parts of data science. And is there anything that you guys are doing in the private sector today that, get you excited to wake up in the morning and go to work and tackle bigger, interesting problems? Adam, you want to jump on this first?
Yeah, I think it's not exactly an answer to your question, but it's related, which is I really, really love my job because I get to live in between the data, which is hundreds of different tables that are tracking every car that we make an offer on, all of the actions taken on our website. And the product owners, product managers oftentimes, or even software engineers who have questions about that data, right? And so what gets me excited every day is to live in this world where I'm helping making data understandable to non-technical audiences. That's my favorite part of my job, I'd say.
Awesome. Great. Danny, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm fortunate to love my job. I'm so happy that I kind of specialized, and I highly recommend it to people because being like a master of your craft is something that gets me up in the morning. And I think it really sets you aside at a company as well in terms of growth opportunities, and that alone is like very motivating. Outside of that, and kind of adding on to something that Adam was saying, is that a data table is just a data table until someone does something with it. And being the person who actually turns it into an automated report that the product team looks at every single day and can see changes in and then make decisions on is very rewarding. And seeing the product team get so excited when I deliver them the results of something that they were testing and it like met their expectations or they're not going to pursue it. So many critical decisions of the business are based on the numbers, especially at these big companies. And being the person that provides those numbers gives you insanely amazing visibility to executives and such great purpose as well. And I think that if you're doing that type of a role at a company or an industry that you like, which in my case is entertainment, the numbers are also so interesting of like what shows are performing, what should we invest in, what are shows that are similar. And then you kind of tie in that research aspect where you're actually like creating something new. So I think that the specialty as well as delivering results out of something that is not useful to someone who is not able to like turn a data table into a report or build out a pipeline is very impactful at the company. And that's a huge part of it for me.
Absolutely. All right, Alex, what are your thoughts here?
So pretty much every Fortune 500 company has to have a data strategy now. They used to only have finance and then they would have sales, and now they have to have data scientists. So lucky for all of us, it's a number one most required person that's being hired for at the Fortune 500 in all sectors and all industries. And I think what's exciting for me is, having kind of done this for a little while, worked at big companies, small companies, startups, what I find really interesting is like, if you go into the Salesforce App Store, there's a couple apps inside the Salesforce App Store that make more revenue than probably most of Salesforce. So you don't need to move the needle so much at, Johnson Johnson or Procter Gamble to try to save a penny, but just solve like one problem that no one is looking at and be the first person there, and you can really capitalize on it.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think I would agree across the board, right? It's making a positive impact and deriving value for the business, right? That's what makes data science move from a nice to have and a luxury to now a requirement for the business, and that right hand for senior leadership to make decisions and make the decisions quickly and based on data. And that's how most of them find success over time. Moving on, love to get your thoughts on, again, doing good in our roles. How do you feel like your econ degree has helped you make a positive impact in your job or in your greater field in your career? Danny, you want to go first with this one?
Yeah. Just gonna kind of tie it back to user behavior, which I had touched on a little bit before. I think something that's so awesome about AI and machine learning is the ability to personalize someone's experience on an app and make it even better and not waste their time, if you will. So if someone logs on to Max and they're seeing suggestions that they actually want to watch and they spend less time browsing, that's a better experience for them. And this, again, kind of relates back to the user research that I feel like I did a lot of in my econ degree at USC. Understanding like what causes someone to make a decision. It's kind of like the psychology that ties into econ. It was always something that I really enjoyed studying in addition to the mathematics. And I think that combination really, really is what like propelled me forward into the data field of understanding where those two can actually connect, and just in tech actually making someone's experience better kind of ties into that.
Great. Alex, what about you?
I think it's important to be aware of the biases that are in our field. Everybody knows about the Twitter X files and how certain language models are maybe being trained in a certain political direction. And if you kind of have, middle of the road moral compass, and you can make an impact in the organization you're at to prevent some of these things that are happening, I really think that would do the best to the world as possible. I mean, it also can be used for malice if it is trained that way. So at least as data scientists, we know why it's doing that, and we can understand how to fix those things, whereas some people just kind of are victims of circumstance. So I think that's important to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. Adam, what do you think?
The one thing that comes to mind for me where I feel like I've had a really positive personal impact on some of my colleagues is explaining basic statistical concepts that are maybe like hard to understand at first to anyone, right? I think it's hard to wrap your head around what statistical significance really means. But product owners are all, what they want to do is they want to run an A/B test, and they want their challenger to be statistically significant from the control. But not all of them actually know what statistical significance means. And so it's really cool to sit down with the product owner and try and break that concept, for example, down for them. And so that's something I enjoy, is just teaching people about statistics. And I, at the beginning of my job, I literally had a conversation with one of our product owners, and I was going back to my econometrics test book from sophomore, junior year to help remind me, like, how should I explain this to someone, right? To kind of jog my memory and give me some ideas about the language to use and how to make it approachable to someone as if they were a college student, right? So yeah, that's what I'd say.
Awesome. Fantastic. Yeah, I think Alex touched on something really interesting, that bias, right? And you see it across the political spectrum, but it's really inherent in data science and what we do, right? Having control of those numbers and the story that you derive out of that data sometimes isn't always crystal clear or black and white. So bias, if sales is looking for a number or direction, or product wants an answer because they moved a button from one spot to another, and they're trying to prove the value of their work, that's where you see data science and being objective as possible really, really important to the health of the business, right? Because if we start going down a path and it's not the reality of what's happening, then it gets harder and harder to dig yourself out of that. So to that end, I would love to hear from you guys and what your thoughts are on, challenges that you deal with in your daily roles in data science, big projects or small. Alex, you want to go first here?
What a very challenging project that I did in the last couple of years was doing OCR data extraction for oil and gas. And what that means is there's all these documents that are legal binding agreements, and some of them are literally handwritten. Some of them are like 1970s carbon paper, but these are very important documents that basically have a chain of custody to ownership of land and rights and whatnot. Thousands of these. People were literally sitting in an office typing the contents all day long for minimum wage. And we went to this company and we were like, you're going to be doing this for 50 years. Like, no, there's not amount of people in the world that could sit here and plug this in. And so with data science tools, you can take an image of the document, even if it's handwritten, and you can extract the data and basically ingest it into a database. And something that simple literally saved millions and millions of dollars and many, many hours of people literally chicken pegging on a typewriter. So that is one challenge. It's not moving, heaven and earth, but it's literally just solving something that shouldn't be, 1970s technology.
Yeah, and really interesting. Adam, what about you?
I'm thinking, one thing that we're working on at Edmonds right now is LLMs. And I would say this is a challenge for me as someone who does not have experience working with neural nets, to try and wrap my head around how LLMs work and what all the possible sort of applications look like of LLMs, but also just generative AI more generally. And it's something that, especially at Edmonds, there's one data scientist, his name is Andrew, who I don't think knew that much about LLMs maybe 2 years ago. But as they've gotten really, really popular, has just put his head down and learned a ton, and who is now like the subject matter expert at Edmonds. And there's a lot of eyeballs on a lot of the stuff that he's working on as a result of that, right? So that's something challenging that I think right now technologists see a lot of potential in. And yeah, it's hard. But it's worth learning about, is what I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. Danny, what about you?
a little bit more general to the industry. And this also may be unique to being the bottom of the totem pole at my age. But something that I find to be a challenge being like the data science support is that a lot of times we get sent down rabbit holes or put on projects that never see the light of day and never go into production. And that's because every single team thinks we need the numbers for this, or we need the pipeline for this, we need to collect data on this, we need to automate this, etc. So I think that a lot of like how hot the field is right now and the industry overall is great for the growth of it and the attention to it, but then also kind of a downside is the overexposure to areas that do not need that type of work. But then sometimes, you have to say yes in business, especially when you are starting off. So that's something that I think that will get better with time, I hope, is that not everything has to have data to support it or back it up. But that right now everybody wants it. I have like the three things. That was one. Another one is data quality as a challenge, industry overall. And this kind of ties into the rabbit hole that sometimes they may say, oh, we have this and therefore we should use it. And it may not actually be a good source of truth. It may be biased information. You have to be able to look at something and do some kind of like Excel back of napkin math to see like if this is this like 10 people or is this significant, kind of like what we were talking about earlier. And then doing that at scale at bigger companies is a little bit more challenging overall. And then lastly, I think working with people who are not so technical is something that is challenging, especially because I consider myself to be pretty collaborative in all aspects and I love working with others. But I think that as technology continues to become just more commonplace and the norm, this will be less of an issue, but it kind of just relates to going down the rabbit holes a little bit, in which people sometimes really don't understand the results that you are showing them. And so you have to really be willing to make it digestible, go that extra mile. And when it comes to like visualizations, the color palette and the labels, and can someone look at this on their own time and really understand what's going on? You don't want to get lost in translation. So I think like educating your peers is one of the challenges that was not in my job write-up. But something that I kind of enjoy doing now that I'm a little bit more used to it.
Yeah, fascinating. I think Danny hit on a couple of really interesting things. As I've watched data science grow at Apple, and the expectations of those groups, because it's so hot and you've got a lot of great talent, the reality moves toward not everything needs to be a home run, right? Not everything needs to turn into a $1 million, $10 million, $100 million idea or solution or product. More often than not, they fail. And it's good to see that failure happen, because it keeps the data science team right there on the cutting edge of what matters, and not necessarily cranking out Tableau reports or automating things and rinsing and repeating every day or every week. So I've always found that really, really important. One last question for you guys as it relates to your experience before we move over into guidance for the audience. And we've touched on some of this stuff, right? Supervised, unsupervised data sets and data structures. But how do you guys individually embrace innovation and entrepreneurialism in your current roles? Which is something we have started to touch on here, but I think is really important for the space. Adam, you want to go first here?
Yeah, so my senior year at USC took this really awesome class called Hacking for Defense, and it was offered through the Masters in Engineering program. But I was really lucky. I got to apply with the team of undergraduates, and we worked on a Department of Defense problem set for them over the course of a semester, applying what's called the lean startup methodology. And we read this book called The Startup Owner's Manual. And one thing about that book that has stuck with me ever since I read it was talking to customers. But not in the sense of, we sell a product to dealerships to help them sell more cars. I need to go talk to a customer, a dealership. In my job, my customers are really the folks who are using my reports and using the analysis I'm using to make decisions, right? So I'm constantly seeking feedback and trying to learn how the product owners are thinking in order to best be a resource for them, is what I'd say. So know who your customer is and try and do the best job you can do to be valuable to them, is what I'd say.
Great. Danny, what do you think about innovation at Max?
Embrace it. I love getting involved on the projects that are just starting. Most recently, like a personalization project, I really have enjoyed. Fraud is another area that we're looking into. Password sharing. Sorry, everybody. It's coming. But even outside of like projects at work, I love Chat GPT. I think OpenAI is amazing. And when that first came out, that was like, what is this? I felt the same way as everyone else. And now I lean so heavily on it to make myself as efficient as possible. And it's like, embrace the change, learn from it, take it one step further and ask, how does this work? And then look into a language model. How does it predict? And how is it answering that? It's like, it's predicting the most likely next word. How is that calculated? What's that formula? It all kind of comes back to math at the end of the day. And as an econ student, and if you're finding success in econ or you're willing to work hard and you have that capability to understand these types of things, you can really look under the hood and actually understand what's going on, learn, and either utilize it or build your own version. So I think embracing innovation is really important, even if intimidating at first.
Great. Alex, you want to close out this section for us?
Innovation. I haven't really innovated much until recently. You kind of have to master all the different pieces of software before you can put them all together. And, I didn't even try to start this company I'm working for till maybe 2 or 3 years ago, because we were still kind of learning how these functions are. And now that I've had enough time to formulate an actual product, me and my partner launched a software a couple of years ago called Build Alpha. And I think our challenge is we have it to a place where it's innovative, and do we go and try to sell it, try to raise money, or do we keep innovating? And as like a data nerd, you can be like, I love building models and cool things and like changing all these aspects of it, but is that bringing in revenue? So if you're going to think in an entrepreneurial way, you got to kind of look at both ends of it. Like, can it sell now? Can it sell for more later? How much sweat equity do we need to put into this? Can we raise 5 million now? Can we raise 10 million? Like, is it worth more if we have users paying or if it's just freemium? There's a lot more than just building the apps to starting companies. So just keep those two sides of your brains working at the same time.
Fantastic. Absolutely. All right. So let's change gears here a bit and put ourselves in the shoes of the students, getting ready to think about internships and moving into their career or, potentially grad school. We've talked about Python. We've talked about SQL Zoo and Excel. Is there anything else that you guys would recommend, skills, languages, coursework at SC or outside of SC, or experience that they should focus on before they eventually move on into the workforce? Danny, you want to jump on this one first?
Yeah, I just went through this. It's a tough time. And I think take advantage of the resources that are there, especially at USC. I know that they now have like a joint dual major in econ data science. I wish they had that when I was there. I made my own by doing the minor and then doing the major on top of it. it's shocking how quickly USC reacts to changes in the industry and actually teaches it in the curriculum. There's been so many times that I like happen upon things in work that I learned in class, and like that is so impressive. So all that to say that USC really, really is up to date and teaches these things very well. And then on top of that, if you're interested in learning on your own, there's so many online resources. I know Adam said SQL Zoo, etc. Doing projects. I would love to say that the interview process is going to be simple, but it's not. You're going to have coding exams, practice, like know it so well, know the foundations, and just do your best to like really gain that exposure in whatever method you prefer. You can take a class, you can do the minor, you can do the double major, or you can be self-taught. There's a lot of different roads that all lead to the same place, which is just learning those skills.
Excellent. Alex, what about you? If you could go back and do it all over again.
I wish Udemy was around. I mean, YouTube wasn't even really around when I was starting, but Udemy has been a huge thing for me. I've literally taught myself how to code from zero on Udemy. And what most people don't know is platforms like Alteryx, they're, $5,000 a year just for one license. But if you have a student email, they will give you a free license basically forever. So that's how I taught myself that. Is I just said, I'm starting school even though I was out of school, and I learned a software that was like, very, very expensive to even get into. And then just do something every day, like they have challenges, like sort of puzzle challenges. As long as you keep at it, like there's certain things that I don't remember, like, XML coding, like I have no idea how that works anymore, but somehow I did it before. Like just do something every day in Python, or maybe follow some of these Python Twitter accounts, just keep it fresh. And then you can always kind of tap into that as you're moving on to different things.
Awesome. Adam, what about you?
So I got versions of this question a lot when I was helping recruit at TM Financial Forensics. And my answer today is the same answer I gave then with an addendum. And so the answer I always gave was, one, we were looking for folks who we thought were going to be really, really good team players. So demonstrating in some way that you're someone that we want to work with and who's pleasant to work with and is accountable and like just wants to do a good job, right? That was the first thing we really looked for. The second thing was, can you work with numbers and can you demonstrate in some way, whether it be through upper div math classes that you took that you did well in, or maybe a project that you worked on outside of your major that demonstrated that you're comfortable with stats, right? So it was those two things that I always said. And my addendum for analytics and data science and is what Alex and Danny touched on, which is I think getting like a base competency in something like SQL or Python and being able to work through a coding exercise in an interview. That's a big thing, I'd say. And there are lots and lots of resources online for you to go do that. I can't think of the ones that I used off the top of my head preparing for my interviews at Edmonds. But they exist. They're out there and worth taking some time to work on.
Yeah, fantastic. So yeah, Adam, I think you touched on one really important piece here is being a good team player, right? If you're in the world of data science, you should always be expected to go get your data. You go up the mountain for a week, a month, and build a model or a data product, and you come down, right, and you share it with everyone, and you would assume it's a finished product. What I've seen historically is more healthy data organizations are much more team centric, right? You're doing math review, right? And you're looking at those statistical models that were chosen and the variables and how much weight was put on something, and going back and looking at the forecast and understanding why you didn't hit it. So it's math review, it's code review, and you need to be open to constructive criticism on all of it, right? From the models you selected to why you chose that color palette for a graph, and why the orange and yellow are a little hard to decipher when they're up on a big screen in a conference room. So all of those things really wrap themselves into being successful in the role. So let's talk about gaining experience and breaking through, whether that's internships or early jobs as a business analyst or as a true data scientist. How would you guys recommend getting into this uber popular, increasingly important field? Alex, you want to go first here?
Yeah, before everybody just wanted to work on Wall Street. I mean, everybody in economics and Marshall, everybody was trying to go to Wall Street or be in real estate. And when that all came down, we had to do other things. People left LA. I left LA. People went to New York. Don't be afraid to go to a different part of the country. I mean, I moved to Louisiana for a couple jobs. I live in Houston right now, and there's just nobody here. There's not a lot of young people here. And so there's, I think, more relative opportunity than sticking around maybe San Francisco, not to knock on San Francisco. I mean, I grew up in California. I'm a beach boy, but I had to go where the money was. And so that's one thing, is don't be afraid to move straight out of college if you can't find something. And then, as far as internships, don't be afraid to work for free. I've worked for free. I've worked for people and then had them not even pay me. So I've worked for free in a lot of different ways, but just get the experience built. Like I said, build a portfolio of stuff, like show at least from any job you do, have some proof of what you did. You might not be able to take everything from certain companies, but just kind of keep it with you. So when you keep going, you're bringing that to the next value add, and you can just level up as you change jobs. So that's my recommendation.
Awesome. So it looks like Adam's answering a question in the chat. Danny, you want to jump on this one?
Yeah, that's a great point from Alex. And kind of adding on to that, don't be afraid to take the long route. I did. I mean, it doesn't seem that way, but a lot of my friends out of undergrad were getting jobs that I had really wanted, and that I didn't feel like I was hitting those same goals that I had set for myself, and went to grad school, was fortunate to be able to do so, and got there eventually. I think that it's really important to do your due diligence, whether for me that was kind of in the education 20-hour days I was putting in for a year and a half, or starting at the company in a different adjacent role and networking and moving your way over as soon as there's an opening by being someone that people like working with. Breaking through is the hardest part. Having the job is some tough work as well, but you'll probably really enjoy it. I know I do, but stay persistent, stay diligent. Don't give up when you get told no. I got told no so many times, and now a bunch of the companies that I applied to are in my LinkedIn inbox messaging me for recruitment. So breaking through is the hardest part, and you just really, really have to stay persistent is my biggest piece of advice.
Fantastic.
Mm.
Adam, I can throw it over to you here, unless you're trying to.
No, I have some thoughts. And I can get back to the chat in just a second. I would say don't be afraid to reach out to people who work in the field that you're interested in. I think most folks who went to USC and have a student from USC reach out to them to ask them to just chat about their job are usually happy to do that. And if you get along really well with that person, and maybe you can talk about some of the work that you've done and why you're interested in the roles that you are, I mean, that could open up a first round interview somewhere just like that. I cold reached out to so many people on LinkedIn, and that didn't actually lead to any like job offers, but it led to a bunch of really interesting conversations that helped me kind of sort out what I wanted. So yeah, that's just one little tidbit I'd add to and second everything that Alex and Danny shared.
Fantastic. All right, so we've got a couple questions in the chat. We've got 5 minutes left, and I do want to end on advice from each of you for the group. One of the questions that came through is, how does your networking through USC impact the opportunities you've had when you're looking for a job? Does anyone want to jump in and answer this question?
It
I mean,
helps.
I'll be honest. I wish I would have networked more. I mean, I think I forgot people's emails and birthdays and forgot to, call my friends, every couple months. But I really think that would have helped me more. And so don't be afraid to just check in with people that are of like mind, or in your fraternity or in your graduating class, or who knows, you never know. It's always a call out of the blue might be your next opportunity,
Yeah, I think
right?
it
I mean,
helps if
yeah.
you take advantage of the network. It'll pay you back in many ways. Even if it's not a job, it could be an opportunity like 5 years from now, or it could be them introducing you to someone else you never know, but it definitely helps, and take advantage of it.
Fantastic. All right. Next question is about how the field is advancing rapidly, right? Which I think we can all agree on. And the question is, how do you stay on top of managing your models and staying current on growth in the field and advancements in the technology?
I think I can hop in. I think as you gain experience in this field, as I have over the last 9 months or so, you'll pretty quickly realize what you're interested in and what the problems are that your company's facing. And I think if you just follow your natural curiosity towards something, or you want to go after, kind of like Alex was actually referring to at the beginning of the call, you want to go after a problem that's no one has solved, it's likely going to require you having to learn some new skill that's likely current, right? So I would say go solve problems, and the skills that are current will come as a result of that, as a byproduct.
All right. Fantastic. So just 2 minutes left here. I'd love for each of you to close out with what is your one piece of advice for the group if they're interested in a career in data science. Alex, you want to go first?
If you want to go fast, you should probably focus on one single area and be really, really good at that. There's a lot of things in data science. There's a lot of different ways to go. There's, machine learning, there's deep learning, all this stuff, but if you want to like kind of rocket to the top of some particular place, it's usually good to just focus on one thing, become a subject expert in that, just be the best at that one thing, and then you can kind of do the other things later. At least that's what I did, and I think that's worked for me. So just find what you like. Certain things are not very fun, like databases were like watching paint dry when I first started doing it. And I was like, what the heck is this? This is so boring. But then I got to see what it did. The outcome of knowing this can be really fun and exciting. So there's kind of like a growing pains, I guess you could say, with some of the skills, but then they become second nature. So
awesome. Adam, what about you?
I was actually going to say something pretty similar to Alex. I think becoming an expert in one thing will get you ahead really, really quickly. On top of that, I mean, it's I don't mean this to sound like hustle culture. I kind of hate the idea of hustle culture. So don't take it in that way, but I would say like starting off your career, it's really, really hard. You know, I remember the fall semester of my senior year, I didn't have a job lined up. I really wanted a job lined up. And it took, 15, 20 hours a week to reach out to people, to take place in interviews, to go to events like this, right? To do all the things that you're supposed to do when you're trying to get into the industry. And I think really you just kind of have to put your head down and do the work with no promise necessarily that you are going to get a role somewhere, but with the hope that just if you work hard and you put the right energy into it, you can figure it out, right? So to boil it all down, I guess I'm just saying it's hard work and you got to be okay with working really hard.
Awesome. All right, Danielle, we'll have you close it out here.
Yeah, take the classes. It worked for me. I think I've said it a few times, but just ending on it, Viterbi is amazing. And you can absolutely just take that first intro class and find out if you even like it. You may not, and that's okay. But it's all part of the journey. I think that everyone here, if you're at a voluntary informational thing on data science, you're probably going to be fine. Just go that extra mile, try, and all roads will lead to something great for you. But I would recommend taking the educational route and signing up for that class just to be exposed.
Awesome. All right, guys. We are at the top of the hour. Thank you so much, Alex, Adam, Danny. Really appreciate the time and sharing everything you have with us. Hopefully it's been insightful for the group, and good luck to everyone.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks,
Right
Alex.
on.
Thanks, Danny.
Everyone.
Right
Have a good
on.
night, everyone.
you.
Thank you.
Right on,
Bye,
everybody. See
everybody.
ya.
Yeah,
Bye.
fight on.
Bye.